Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. We are waking up with watches, and everything you see is for sale. This weekend is starting right. Reach out to me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com, with your question about the pricing of any watch you see in this program. Boxes, papers, accessories, I'm happy to furnish additional information. Start a discussion. We're looking to build inventory. Buying, trading, and selling, we do it all. We will buy your entire collection, no upper limit on value paid. We pay cash, we pay fast, we make the process easy. We also love to facilitate trades, so trade up to a new flame if you're not wearing your older watch. To buy, trade, or sell, reach out to me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing. Today, we have an absolute classic, the SBGJ227, turning the clock back to 2017 and a 700-piece limited edition in steel from Grand Seiko, the famed Peacock. Now, you can see it features the classic 44GS case that's been a staple of the Grand Seiko line since the original 44GS of 1967. We have the famed Peacock dial with a lustrous green, and then underneath that, a feather-like motif, a texture that lends this watch its nickname. Dial furniture second to none in the mainstream luxury class and superior to many. You could see the micro-faceting on the edge of the indices and the hands mirrored on the flanks, satinated across the top. Grand Seiko dial furniture crafted by hand and placed by hand, in my opinion, even a little bit better than Rolex in the mainstream luxury class. We have the ability to set our local time zone forward and backward while the watch is still ticking, including driving the date forward or backwards. There's a secondary time zone depicted by the gold hand, 24-hour format. You can set them independently. Stop seconds function. We have a high beat automatic caliber here, 10 beats per second with a smooth sweep like a Zenith Primero. A 55-hour power reserve, impressive for a high beat rate watch. An accuracy rated from the factory of no worse than -3 + 5 seconds per day. It wears beautifully on a 16-centimeter circumference wrist. I could see this watch wearing well on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. Now, in 2017, another landmark watch came out, the 500-piece Zenith ECM11S, and for 2022, we get the ECM11S. It is the hard black version of the watch I used to own. I owned that 2017 limited edition. This one, also hailing from Frankfurt, is the icon of Zenith SBGJ227. The ECM1, launched in 1997, was designed for the German Federal Customs Enforcement Unit, and it created this angular beveled lug set that's become a signature style for Zen mission timers, of which this is one. Now, my watch, like this, was 43 millimeters integumented, carbon diffused, and hardened steel. So the face hardness of the steel is 1200 Vickers, but then we have this hard black coating, which Zen only uses over tegument. The idea being, this is over 2000 Vickers on a 1200 Vickers base, so if there's a sharp impact, the hard black won't collapse like an eggshell onto the softer metal beneath. By giving it a hard platform, we ensure it won't dent, it won't crack, it won't flake off. That's the idea. Hard black and tegument all in one. The watch is filled with nitrogen. Yes, I know it says AR. Once upon a time, it was argon, but today, Zen nitrogen fills these cases to displace all impurities and moisture, and then places a little copper sulfate capsule in the flank that will actively pull moisture out of the case should any intrude. It'll turn dark blue when it's no longer active. That's when Zen will replace it. You can see we have a captive bezel. These little screws hold the bezel to the case. That means you can't accidentally snap it off by impact like you can with a Rolex or Omega bezel. Zen owns its own case factory, SUG. They make this case themselves, including all of the hardening process. 25 years. This is a 25-year commemorative edition, 25 years since the original ECM1.1. This is a 43. The original was a 40, but the original didn't have all of these cool Zen technologies. Bidirectional bezel, let's hear it. It's surprisingly chunky and sharp for a bidirectional bezel. You can see on the reverse side, this watch is water resistant down to 20 meters. Limited edition out of 500. It is a lefty chronograph, so you start and you stop it like this. Now, the original ECM1 featured a Lamagna 5100. This one features a 7750 that's been modified in-house by Zen to create the SZ01 caliber. So it works like a Lamagna 5100 with a centrally located jumping 60-minute register. And so you have radial seconds, radial 60 minutes, and then everything else on the dial that you need to see is calibrated in white. Everything that you don't is calibrated in either black or red. turn it off. You can see this one is explosive with the chronograph, seconds and minutes fully legible in the dark. I remember I could almost light my way with this watch in a dark hallway at night. A timepiece that you will want to wear full time. I know I wore mine full time. I adored that watch. It left my wrist for a good cause, otherwise I would never have sold. Throw this one on my wrist, you can see it wears just as well. It's an impressive looking thing. It feels and virtually is indestructible. If you want a hard book of a watch, something that can really get rough and tumble for a luxury product, this is your watch right here. And again, you've got both the chronograph and the bezel. The chronograph counts up, the bezel counts down. That's why it is an Einsatzzeitmesser, a mission timer. All right, from rough and tumble to the ultimate in haute de gamme. We head back to 2013, FP Journe celebrating 30 years as a watchmaker, and he released this. 99 pieces in sterling silver, engine-turned sterling silver and rose gold. This is the 30th anniversary Tourbillon, better known as the T30. So 99 pieces made with a Breguet-style dial, because the dial perfectly recreates the style of FP Journe's first ever watch, which was a pocket watch he created in 1983 in tribute to Breguet. Turning it over, you can see there is a spectacular Grand Dorche, or barleycorn pattern, in sterling silver on the back. Pop open the hunter-style caseback, just like the pocket watch original. Here you can see the bridges have been beautifully frosted. We have a cock for each of the mainspring barrels, 56-hour manual wind power reserve, the largest fired blue screws you will ever see in your life, and probably the largest tourbillon cage that FP Journe has ever made or will ever make. It is a beautiful mechanism, evocative of pocket watch style. And of course, we have those enormous screws and black polished caps for each of the mainspring barrel cocks. Close it all up, snap it shut, 40 millimeters and supremely wearable. You could see the attention to detail. The pin buckle itself features a buckle in rose and a pin in silver. Throw it on the wrist, it looks great. It's a fantastic watch, and I can tell you from first-hand knowledge that FP Journe actually keeps one of these in his personal collection. So if you want to know what the watchmaker is wearing, look no further. It's a cuffable watch. It's short across the wrist. A wrist as small as 14, maybe even 13.5 centimeters circumference can wear it because it's very reasonably sized. Now, let's take a look at something that might even be more accommodating. What we have right here is the Chronomet Dubai. So at first glance, it looks like it might be a green Chronomet Bleu, but instead of a 39mm tantalum case, here we have a 40mm platinum case like a Chronomet Souverain. But unlike a Chronomet Souverain, we don't have a power reserve indicator on the dial. We have this wonderful lustrous green lacquer with 3 hands, so it has the dial layout of Chronomet Bleu, but unlike the Bleu, this is green, obviously, but it also feels a little bit more upscale thanks to applied and media blasted white gold numerals. Remember, the Chronomet Bleu features printed numerals. These are applied, and then we have frosted white gold hands to match. On the back, a limited edition, unique reference, Chronomet Souverain Dubai, 99 pieces, released in platinum to mark the opening of the FP Journe store in the Dubai Mall back in 2019. A lovely, poreless, seamless, green leather to match, and you can see it features a contrasting stitch to perfectly match the color palette of the watch. Throw it on the wrist, super comfy, considerably thinner than the T30. This wears even better on a small wrist, though they are comparable across the wrist. This would probably be my choice, as I simply love the simplicity of it, as well as the color green, which is a personal favorite of mine. But those of you who've watched the channel long-term already know that. Here's a fun independent that's receiving more recognition since it launched its Antarctique sports watch, but let's not forget that back in 2015, Chopek, a revived brand from the 19th century, started selling the Quai de Berg as its first model. This is the Renaissance Final Edition. As you can see on the reverse side of its stainless steel case, 1 out of 11 made, 42.5 millimeters. It has lovely evacuated and satinated case hollows, and you can see that on both sides. The dial with several different finishes and several tiers of focal planes. We have small seconds, these artfully blackened gossamer hands, and then a 7-day power reserve indicator. You can see it advances as you wind the watch. Flip it all over. The movement designed in association with Chronomet, the great movement manufacturer and engineering house. Beautifully decorated. It uses twin barrels, manual wind with a 7-day power reserve. You can see that it has full frosted bridges with mirror bevels that are gorgeous. And then we have satination on the wheels with a combination of both polished and fire-blued screws. A great looking watch and a fun one to wear. It's sporty for a dress watch, to be sure, given the size and the steel construction, but I can wear it on my wrist, and I think if your wrist is my size or larger, that's 16 centimeters and up, you're going to find this is a really good match. A fun watch from a fun brand that's upwardly mobile. A lot of folks are going to come back and rediscover watches like the Faubourg de Cracovie chronograph, the Place Vendôme tourbillon, and the Quai de Berg 7-day power reserve, now that Chopek is gaining more recognition for the Antarctique series. But let's say you want to go swimming with your watch. Let's start with a loom shot, and instead of fading to black, let's turn it around. Here you could see a fully calibrated bezel, a blazing bright dial, and what is it? Well, I don't know if you can see, I don't know if you can hear, but this is something special. Launched as a limited edition of 500 pieces in 2010, this is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms No Radiations, a tribute to historic Blancpain diving watches that advertise their lack of radioactive luminescence. This one uses a luminova, but you can see there are dial changes. First, obviously, the NORAD signature. Now, the NORAD signature actually bumps the 50 Fathoms script up to 12 o'clock. On a standard 50-15, it's down at 6 o'clock. We also have a fully calibrated military-style bezel, whereas on a conventional 50-15, you have the first 15-minute calibrations and then minimal calibration for the remainder of the hour. Here, every minute up to 60 has been calibrated. Now you can see one of the characteristic and beloved features of the 50-15, the cambered sapphire crystal on the bezel that protects all that lume and also creates a perpetually dewdrop wet depth to the gleam and the gloss of the bezel. 300 meters water resistant. There's a soft iron anti-magnetic cage internally. Automatic winding with a 5-day power reserve and 3 mainspring barrels. It's free sprung, and these are well known to run to less than a second gained per day. You can see that the strap, which is sailcloth and nearly indestructible, is held on using screws, hex screws, and bars, so very secure. It wears better than you would expect a steel 45mm diver to wear. It's actually quite compact across the wrist. It's under 51 millimeters, which makes it very agreeable. I could actually wear it on a wrist of my size, and I have that inclination as I simply love the 50-15 series, and this is one of the most memorable. Inside, the movement is beautifully hand-finished. I've seen it assuage your doubts. This is a watch that is as gorgeous and finished inside as it is outside. A lot of folks love Zenith, and one in particular loved Zenith more than others, and that was Charles Vermeau. And in 1975, the factory foreman, Charles Vermeau, defied the orders to scrap the El Primero's manufacturing equipment. Remember, this was only 6 years after the automatic chronograph was launched. He hid it in one of the attics of the manufacturer, and it was later uncovered during the 1980s, when Zenith was looking to get back into supplying mechanical movements. Vermeau disclosed that they had all of the tooling available, and the El Primero re-entered production in about 1984-1985, and it has been in continuous production ever since. Now, this watch is a tribute to Charles Vermeau. Chronomaster Open, 1975, limited edition of 1,975. We have a 4021 El Primero caliber in there. That's the one with the skeletonized bridges and plates that allow you to see the escapement, the drivetrain, and the balance from the dial side. Power reserve indicator. The watch is automatic, though you can also manually wind it to see the power reserve indicator moving. 50-hour power reserve, column wheel lateral clutch action. You could see that this is a very attractive looking automatic chronograph caliber. Not every automatic chrono is attractive, but the El Primero always has been. You can see the blued column wheel, which has exemplary feel, super crisp. 10 beats per second, as with every non-Rolex version of the El Primero chronograph since the original in 1969, when it was the industry's first automatic integrated high-beat chronograph. Now, the old dog has some new tricks, not just the open dial and the open escapement bridge architecture, but you can see that we have a full unlubricated silicone escapement, and the wheel of the escapement actually has the Zenith Star logo inside, giving the watch a measure of anti-magnetism as well as better timing stability in between services. All of this is 100 meters water resistant, so different strap. You can take it swimming. We have here a leather strap, but underneath a rubber inlay to make it super supple on the wrist in steel. The watch is 42 millimeters. It comes with a full twin trigger actuated stainless steel deployant clasp, which you can see right here, popping open. It deploys over your wrist, and it is super crisp. Wonderfully sharp as the day it left Le Loc. Throw the watch on the wrist. You can see the Chronomaster case is distinctive, angular, and contemporary. This is not a retro watch. Zenith does a lot of those these days. This is a very forward-looking modern watch that respects history without plagiarizing it. It's everything I love about the Zenith manufacturer in a package that at 42 millimeters is still compact enough for me to wear. Now, you will find that there's some luminescence here. We'll do a quick lume shot just to give you a taste of that. The watch is very much readable in the dark. You'll have no troubles there. That is the Zenith Chronomaster Open Charles Vermeau limited edition. I'm surprised this watch doesn't cost $1 million. I'll be honest, I have my doubts that it won't make it there someday, because this watch is the first product from one of the most important independent brands of our time. I think right now we're in a bit of a lull where people are just getting over their Journe obsession. And while I always think Journe will be a good play for investors and collectors who want upside, I think right now Greubel Forsey has more percentage potential relative to what the watches cost. This is the double tourbillon 30 degree. When this launched in 2004 as the first product of the new Greubel Forsey manufacturer, it was revolutionary. Here's why. We'll get as close as we can without corrupting the focus. It is two tourbillon regulators. The inner tourbillon is sloped at 30 degrees, so even sitting flush on your dresser at night, it is canceling out the effect of gravity by rotating in 60-second circuits at 30 degrees, orienting the hairspring, the escapement, and the tourbillon carriage up and down cyclically with respect to gravity. Then outboard of that, and you can see that represented by this quadruple serpentine, there is a 4-minute tourbillon outboard, so you have two different tourbillon regulators rotating at two different speeds to cancel out the effect of gravity. Now, the hairspring features both inner and outer overcoils to center the mass as perfectly as possible. The dial is made of solid gold, and as you can see, it is elaborately frosted and cut. We have blued screws on the dial side. We have blued hands. We have a continuously rounded and black polished bridge for the tourbillon, and then its carriage internally has also been immaculately finished. Power reserve indicator. In spite of the power intensive complication, we still have the mainspring barrels visible on back, 72 hours of power reserve. Out of Le Chaux de Fonds, Greubel Forsey was making far fewer than 100 watches a year through the 2000s when this model came out. You can see German silver bridges and plates, that's nickel, copper, zinc, that have been gilded yellow gold, and we have these enormous golden chaton cups to hold the barrel arbors as well as the drivetrain. We have another one at center for the lower pivot of the tourbillon structure. You can see frosting achieved with a wire brush and anglage, real hand-laid anglage, a mile wide. You can also see that there's a lovely satination turned on the base plate, along with engine turning, and the wheels are internally beveled spokes and inner circumference. You can also see how beautifully finished the lower bridge for the tourbillon structure is. This is a watch that brooks no compromise. Inside or out, we have this little sine wave on the side to remind us of the oscillator inside. The watch comes with a full deployant clasp, and at 43.5 millimeters, this is a fairly wearable Greubel Forsey watch. You can see I could wear this on a 16-centimeter circumference wrist with no reservations. It's large, but it's large because it's a showcase for the action within. This is time and space well spent. If you ever want to know what is the finest finish in the industry, I'm always going to name Greubel Forsey as co-equal with maybe 3 or 4 others on that list. And we finish up with a stunner. This might be my favorite new watch of the year. There are 3 different dial variants of the new 42mm Tantalum H. Moser & C. Endeavor Perpetual Calendar. And this lapis lazuli dial in blue, one of only 10 made for 2023, this is the favorite right here because no two are exactly alike and it has a rare beauty. Now, Moser created its first tantalum case watch, the Endeavor Perpetual 42 millimeters. You could see that bewitching blue-gray tantalum with satin as well as polish, concave lug hollows that are hand finished, along with a concave bezel profile that swells at 12 o'clock and down at 6 o'clock. The contouring of the Endeavor case is second to none. You can actually see the case back, as well as the case back sapphire, have a cupped profile. It's 42 millimeters, but only about 48 millimeters from lug to lug, so I have no trouble wearing it on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, and I think if your wrist is as small as 15 centimeters circumference, you're going to find it wears very agreeably. It is beautifully made, and the 10 lucky owners of this watch will never regret it. We have the Andreas Streller Perpetual Calendar System developed for Moser in the 2000s. Bidirectionally settable, it's a perpetual calendar you can set in both directions. Now, there's also a little stub index at center, so 12 hours, 12 months, that's how this perpetual calendar indicates the calendar. So you can see right now, the third hour, the third month, it is March 14th. Now it's March 13th. Now it's March 14th. Power reserve indicator over at 9 o'clock. 7 days rated. In fact, it'll run for almost 9 at full wind. Leaf style hands. You can see we have small seconds down at 6 o'clock. And the watch does feature a hacking seconds function. Turn it all over. You can see the caliber HMC 800, and it is a very special watch. As you'll find, there's a full balance bridge with a free-sprung balance, but it's actually the combination of the two flat hairsprings that makes this one special. As you can easily see, there is one flat hairspring on each side, exactly 180 degrees opposed. So the idea here is that when you turn the watch in any orientation with respect to gravity, because these things are exactly identical in structure, weighting, and curvature, but opposite in orientation, when one causes the balance to speed up, the other will, by an equal and opposite margin, slow it down. That is the idea. Doing what a tourbillon would do, but whereas a tourbillon requires time to counter the effects of gravity, this setup does it instantaneously. We have two barrels set in golden chaton fixed with black polished screws. You can see the unique double-crested Côte de Genève used by Moser. Black polished screws across, all the way down from the barrel arbors, of which there are two, to the escape wheel, and you can see these little golden cups fixed by screws, a nod to the way Moser watches were made during the 19th century and early 20th century. You'll also appreciate that the bridges, though not a true three-quarter because they are split in the center for easier service, they read as a three-quarter bridge, much like a pocket watch. We have a beat rate of 18,000 vibrations per hour, which is aesthetically pleasing, and Moser building not just the bridges, the plates, and the wheels. Many manufacturers stop there. Moser makes the balance, the hairspring, and the escapement. The escapement here is 14 karat gold, which means it operates with very little friction and need for lubrication. Excellent for longevity between services. You can see on the reverse side we have the leap year phase indicator. When Andreas Streller designed this calendar system, he rightly assumed you don't often need to look at the leap year, so he hit it on the case back. We have a full balance bridge with a free sprung balance for toughness, and then the entire escapement, balance assembly, and bridge structure lifts out as a unit to be replaced by a pre-serviced and pre-regulated unit when the watch goes back to its regional Moser service affiliate, so it can be returned more rapidly to you. And the watch is actually a subtle two-tone. If you look carefully, you can see that the crown, the case back, and the buckle are in stainless steel. A lot of people miss that when they look at these tantalum Mosers. So this is my favorite watch in the show, and of what I've shown you today, the one I most wish to own personally. Being a perpetual calendar, it can deal with leap years, irregular length months, and it doesn't have to be reset for almost 80 years. This is a watch for the ages. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Remember, that is Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.